Explaining entertainment, keeping you ahead of the culture curve. Yet again, here we are, and it's such a lovely place to be. Joining us is Lorn Conner from That Park Place. He is the guru when it comes to Star Wars, and frankly, I think he's one of the smartest people out there when it comes to Star Wars. Maybe if Pablo Hidalgo ever decides to vacate his spot at Lucasfilm, Lorn would be a great substitute, and I would assume that Lorn would also treat the fans just a little bit better. Lorn, how are you today?
Good. You're far too kind, but thank you.
Well, I try, but I think it's all due to you. Let's take a look at the Mercury news, and we're going to be talking today about the Galactic Starcruiser and how it is really sort of the canary in the coal mine when it comes to a larger series of problems for the Walt Disney Company in terms of Disney parks. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Galactic Starcruiser is the Star Wars hotel in which guests go and they pretend to be part of the Star Wars universe. They stay there for 2 days. It's like a cruise, except there's no water and it goes nowhere. And rather than doing that sort of thing down in the Bahamas or over in Alaska or the Mediterranean, instead, you pretend to be part of a galaxy far, far away. And at the end of it, at the end of this sci-fi Renaissance fair, you have, well, we hope, had a wonderful time aboard. The only problem is that it's very expensive, and it's also focused in an era of Star Wars that some people really don't like, that being the sequel trilogy. So let's dive into this. Again, the Mercury News: Disney World struggling $5,000 Star Wars hotel slashes prices, cancels summer dates. And that's key to remember that it's the summer dates that are being canceled. This by Brady MacDonald. Walt Disney World's highly hyped Star Wars hotel that debuted to months of sold-out voyages has seen demand cool so dramatically that the Florida theme park giant has been forced to offer steep discounts on the pricey experience and canceled dates in the middle of summer. The Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser Hotel at Disney's Hollywood Studios in Florida has begun offering 30 to 50% discounts to select customers on 3-day, 2-night experiences that cost $5,000 to $20,000. The Galactic Cruise invites costume passengers to hatch plots against the First Order, fall in with a band of underworld smugglers, and sip space cocktails. By the way, that'll cost you more, as long as they can suspend disbelief and buy into the interstellar cosplay theater of what's been billed as the most immersive Star Wars experience ever created. All right, Lawrence, so in your opinion, why do you feel that this experience is so gravely damaged that not even a year into its operations, not even a year, Disney is having to discount this thing by 30 to 50%. What say you on what's causing this?
Well, I think there's a bunch of factors involved. I think that one of the things that Disney probably got a little overzealous about was thinking that there was going to be a huge number of people that were going to be willing to pay this kind of money for this kind of experience in the middle of some of the greatest inflationary periods that we've seen in a while. Besides that, I think there may have been maybe too much belief that people would be comfortable doing something like a LARPing excursion. I think as fans, a lot of people would love to live in the Star Wars universe. But when you're in a theme park, there's always a little bit of remove from the actual place you're visiting. You're still you while you're there. If you're playing a role, that's not something that necessarily comes easily to a lot of people. It can make you feel awkward and a little stilted. And if you feel silly, you're not going to pay a lot of money for that kind of experience. So I think locking it into a role play experience may have been one problem. Having it be a multi-day excursion might have been another problem. I think maybe a smarter way to do this would have been something more like a Medieval Times, where you have a show that's put on. It could be an interactive experience, but I don't think you would necessarily want to have people staying in bunks for that kind of a thing. You don't necessarily need a hotel, but you do need a venue where a story could be told. Maybe you could have dinner, see the cantina, something like that. Wrap it all up into a one-night experience. Charge significantly less, but get more people on it, and maybe have some variations in the story that's told so that you might want to come back and do it more than one time.
So let's deal with the elephant in the room. Do you think that this hotel experience would have been better or worse, or would there be no financial impact on Disney's operations had they chosen a different time frame for Star Wars as opposed to locking it into the sequel trilogy?
I think there's no question that you shouldn't lock it into the sequel trilogy. However, I think you might be able to make a smart play by having it cover multiple different eras. There's the prequel trilogy, of course, there's the original trilogy. They already have the backstory of the Halcyon claiming that it's been in service forever. But why not go further? If you know that you're building out into the future and you know you have stuff that's in the past, now in the current canon, what you have there is the High Republic. I wouldn't advise doing that, but there's no reason that you couldn't dip your toe into a little bit of the Old Republic if you want to make a splash there. I'm hesitant to let current Disney do that, but if your idea is that maybe we're going to tell multiple different stories on this thing, maybe the way you do that is in different eras. You don't necessarily have to do a lot of reskinning. A lot of ships in the Star Wars universe are ancient. They don't necessarily change. What you'd be changing is some costuming for some of the characters, and that wouldn't necessarily have to be extensive.
And we also want to say too here that we are fully supportive of the cast members who have worked so hard on this. It's not their fault that this thing is faltering. And so you got to think about the people, the ladies who are playing Rey, the guys who are playing Kylo Ren, the people who are putting everything they've got into playing these auxiliary characters. And, you know, these people are working extremely hard and doing the very best they can. It's not their fault. So we want to separate that out. Imagineering could have done better, but the cast members are giving it their everything.
I want to say something about that too. Something that just occurred to me as I was thinking about this is that I said some people aren't really comfortable with the role play experience. But another problem with that is that when you're shooting a movie set, there's lots of tricks that they use to make everything look real, depending on the camera angle, the lenses that they're using to shoot, the lighting. You have different qualities of material depending on how close up a shot may be. When you're in a fake environment like this, no matter how much money that you spend on it, eventually it's going to feel artificial. And I think part of the problem that the audience may be running into is that you've paid a lot of money, but what you're looking at feels fake. It feels like maybe a really good high school production. And that's not a knock at high school productions, but it's not what you see on the movie screen. So I think there's a disconnect between what the audience is paying for and what they feel like they get. That's why something like a dinner theater or a shorter excursion or different stories that you can go back and do multiple times in the long run might make Disney more money.
Yeah, great point, Saul. Let's take a look at some more issues that Disney Parks is having. And let me tell you, it's been a bad day for them. We are recording this on the same day that Ron DeSantis and the conservative state legislature of Florida have taken control of the Reedy Creek Improvement District. Now, I don't think the governor has signed that into law yet, but if you followed along over the past year from a lot of news outlets, they proclaimed this would never, ever, ever happen. And even until today, they are still misrepresenting what is occurring. This is not a political channel, and we're not here to feed you politics, but we've been telling you this is going to happen. And that's not us trying to be political. That's just us, talking with attorneys in Florida, talking with individuals like Andrew over at Legal Mindset who have expertise in this area. And, we knew what was going to happen. We didn't spin it for you, and we're going to continue to not spin things. Let's take a look at this situation. This out of My News 13. Ashley Carter is the writer on it. Disney's planned job cuts to impact Parks Division. The Walt Disney Company's planned jobs cuts, which were announced, by the way, at the earnings call we covered recently, will impact every division across the company, including Parks, according to an email Disney Parks Experience and Products Chairman Josh D'Amaro sent to employees on Thursday. The cuts announced Wednesday by CEO Bob Iger are part of a company-wide restructuring. Here's what D'Amaro had to say. As was shared on the earnings call, the company is targeting significant savings across all businesses, and the reorganization will result in necessary reductions to our overall workforce. While our teams have made great progress in contributing to cost savings, these measures affect every segment and organization, including ours, and are vital as we implement more cost-effective, coordinated, and streamlined operations. He added that the company doesn't expect the job cuts to impact hourly frontline operation roles. Now, that last line is really something to me because it's presented as if it's this virtuous thing that they're not going to cut the people on the front lines. And then you say, well, who are they going to cut? Oh, they're going to cut the people who have worked their way up into management. Oh, so the people invested more time, but they make more money, and therefore it's easier to cut them. Gotcha. Okay. So I'm not sure that's a great thing, but it's really sad to me that Disney Parks in the last quarter that was the saving grace of the company. They really performed exceptionally well in the domestic parks. And guess what? It doesn't matter the sinking ship that is Disney Plus. Now, I don't think it's going to ultimately sink the company. That's ridiculous. But the fact that Disney Plus is losing $1 billion every quarter is resulting in job cuts across the board. And that includes the division that is just doing fantastic for Disney Parks. Who suffers from that? Well, cast members and the people who go to Disney World and Disneyland. Lorn, what would you say about this situation with Disney Parks having to cut positions based off of some of these other failings? Any thoughts on that one?
Well, I'm not an expert when it comes to how you finance something like their streaming operations or anything like that. I think the thing that really hit me the other day, and I think it was Valiant's video, where he was talking about how this is the equivalent of one of their cruise ships every single quarter. That really illustrates just how big of an issue this is.
Right, sinking to the bottom of the ocean every quarter.
Yeah, that's an awful hit, and it's frustrating as well because while there's a lot of content on Disney Plus that I haven't been happy about, it's a service that I think is exciting and that I would like to see succeed. One of the reasons for that is because it's one of the few areas that I see where they're still innovating with technology the way that George Lucas used to do, trying to push things forward to make it easier to produce these things in a shorter amount of time and costing less. That's a good thing for everybody. But you've got to get the sunk costs in the infrastructure. You've got to get to profitability sometime soon. And right now, they're stuck in a situation where they have to keep producing content, which is expensive. And that content isn't biting in the way that it needs to with the audience so that Disney Plus becomes something that's must see. So
well,
I think
that's because it's beholden to their ideology, which isn't palatable to half the market, let's say.
It's a part of it. I don't think it's all of it, though. It's producing content is not something that's easy, and it's something that normally you figure that a movie, let's take a movie, for example, because I know something about that a little bit more than I do in TV production. But for George Lucas's movies, it used to take 1 year for pre-production, 1 year for the production shoot, and then 1 year for post-production. Disney tried to condense that by trying to do a lot of things simultaneously. I think that hurt them, but it did get them down to a 2-year production time per movie. In TV, they go even faster. But even so, it still requires a lot of planning. It takes an awful lot of work, and it's a big gamble. So the danger that I think they have is they need to produce a lot of content to keep up with people like Netflix and some of the other streaming providers. But this is all kind of new to them when it comes to TV production on this scale in the time frame that they need. So right now they need to be focusing on quality because they need everything to be a hit. They need people coming back for everything so that they don't cancel when whatever one show that they're tuning in for ends for the season.
They're
They want that
definitely
recurring
getting burned
revenue.
by the churn, would you say?
Yeah. They need the recurring revenue, and it needs to be constant.
All right, Lauren, let's take a look now. And this is one of my big worries here is that because of what we're talking about, these mega losses coming from Disney Plus, that the job cuts then and these other cuts going around to the other divisions, my fear is this is going to damage Disney Parks, which has been stellar. And so here's an example of what I think is going on in the spin that Disney is playing. This from WDW Magic.com. Disney continues to keep peak attendance at 20% below pre-pandemic levels at Walt Disney World. Now, question before we dive into this, Lauren, do you think that Universal Studios is also keeping their parks at an artificially lower capacity?
No, I think they'd be crazy to do so.
And I think Disney is crazy to do this. But this is what you have to do, I would suppose, when you're cutting jobs and when you have staffing issues. So this is spun a little bit differently than perhaps the truth is. Let's take a look. According to Disney, attendance during peak holiday weeks is now kept at nearly 20% below pre-pandemic levels, which the company says improves the guest experience. Notably, Disney seems to have settled on the concept of having fewer guests in the parks than pre-pandemic, but having those guests in the park spend more than they used to, i.e., charge them for things that were once free. Disney Parks experiences and products revenues for the quarter increased 21% to $8.7 billion. Disney says that guest spending growth was due to an increase in average per capita ticket revenue driven by Genie Plus and Lightning Lane. Again, what was once a previously free service given to everybody, which therefore, if you begin charging for it, lowers the overall quality of the product. Now, here's what I think, Lorn. I think that if you are capping it at 20% below, I think that does two things. One, you get to spin it and say it's all about guest experience, but also what you get to do is that when you don't have the numbers that you once had, it's hidden because, oh, we're at capacity. You don't have to say, oh, we don't have the same numbers of people wanting to come to the parks right now. It hides that.
Yeah, I think it's for Disney. I think you're going to want to have as many outs as you can for explanations for what they're seeing to try and not rattle investors. And so I think that's part of why on the earnings call you saw them make a lot of the concessions that they were making to Peltz. I think the investors are starting to get pretty restless and they're getting tired of hearing excuses. But they're in kind of a pinch here. They tried to set themselves up, I think, as a premium experience. They were trying to upscale the costs on everything, to charge for everything, like you're saying. But there's a danger in doing that because you do tune out a lot of the audience that can no longer afford to come to the parks. And when you have people of those kind of means, Disneyland or Disney World is not necessarily going to be their top destination. So it's kind of tricky to figure out how they back out of some of these problems. They need to solve some of their cash flow and personnel issues.
Well, one thing they need to do is they need to start rolling back in the things that made Disney parks special. And then in Disney World, they need to grow. If the issue for them is capacity, the answer is not to artificially limit who can come to your parks. The answer is to grow your parks because you have enormous amounts of space and you can grow. So there's nothing stopping them from doing that other than staffing issues and their desire to lower costs for CapEx investments by cloning everything amongst all the parks. Now, you segued great into what I want to wrap up with. And before we do this, let me say that we're not a financial advice channel. We're not giving you financial advice. And if you'd like financial advice, you need to seek out your own personal financial advisor, hopefully one who is certified in the area of expertise from which you seek. But remember on the earnings call, the live earning call with Valiant Renegade, when I said we need 48 hours, everybody, the blogosphere was lit up with, oh my gosh, it was the greatest earnings report ever. The numbers, oh my gosh, the stock is rising. Oh, it's, and I said, 48 hours. Hold on. Look at this. After everything has been settled, Disney stock, 48 hours after the earnings call, lower than it was prior to the earnings call. So this is a company that's got some issues that they need to start fixing. I don't take any joy in that. I don't take any joy in the Galactic Starcruiser struggling. I don't take any joy in the demand for Disney parks seeming to be lower than it once was. And Lorn, I know that you don't take any joy in Star Wars not even being able to get a theatrical release out the door. So Lorn, real quick, what are your thoughts on this position that Disney is in, and how do you think they can get this reversed, both for the Galactic Starcruiser and for Star Wars at large?
I think it's real difficult now when talking about Star Wars. I think the interesting thing about the graph there that you showed is it makes me wonder if why people were getting excited was because they thought that Nelson Peltz was going to be well. I'm wondering if they thought Peltz was going to be successful.
I jumped the gun. You had that's a great idea.
If it turns out that him backing off of that play, and as Valiant said, he did get most of what he wanted,
and we don't know what else he didn't get, Lorn. We don't know what else he got or didn't get because some of that may have been agreed to, to the side, not in public view.
Sure, but it does make me wonder what would have happened had he continued pressing. I don't think that I mean, my expertise on these kind of things usually comes from the story side. I'm a lore guy in Star Wars and a couple of other properties, but he's not going to be there. He's going to be saying, how do we improve our money situation so that the investors are making more money? That's why he's there. The easiest way to do that is make your customers happy. Make it so that people want to come to see what you have to offer. Make it affordable so that you can get more people in there. Maybe stop trying to divide people. Those are all things that I think are sort of business 101. Whether that's all of that stock dropping or not, I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. But I think that unless Disney starts producing things that harken back to what they did before. They used to be a safe company that produced entertainment that was safe for the entire family. You can't say that anymore. I would probably not allow my son, for instance, to watch Disney Plus without supervision at this point. And that's kind of a sad statement to make. And I think that's what's hurt them most of all.
Absolutely. And, Disney World, Disneyland too, but mostly Disney World has been just a huge boon for success for the Walt Disney Company. And in my opinion, it sure is a shame to see some of these other damaged parts of the company now begin to creep in. And I hope that Disney will recognize that the flaws of the other divisions don't need to come into Disney parks, and they need to get back to that high quality entertainment experience and giving guests the things that will make them tell everybody else out there, man, you just won't believe how great Disney World or Disneyland is. All right, Lauren, that'll do it for us for today. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, we hope that you keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.